Greetings! And the moment we've all been waiting for over a year, finally happened. The Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials have all been released, and I have watched them all. Oh boy, Doctor Who is 60 years old now. Feel old yet? I'm starting to. Anyways, so I figured that rather than just give a quick review for each one individually, I do what I did for the Flux season and just review all three of them in one go. I I can't remember if I did a review for Power of the Doctor. I guess I'm just saving it for Doctor Who Revisited whenever I get around to it. But since I got a very long time since I'll get to it at all, not to mention the specials, I figured I'd just do a review of them now and then revisit them appropriately when I get to them on my incredibly long rewatch. So, what do I think of the Doctor Who 60th anniversary specials? Well, to start with, let's open with the most obvious thing of all, the new theme song, the new opening title sequence, and may I just say, I love it. I love it. It's epic, it's grandiose, it's very befitting of a 60th anniversary milestone, and it even actually manages to do what I believe the Matt Smith 50th anniversary title sequences tried to do, with the series 7B or whatever it was called, the Clara season. So it does what that tried to do, but does it way better. Now, that being said, I personally think they need to go. And I just spent some time praising those title sequences. And the reason I say that is because I think those were great opening titles for the 60th, if you catch my meaning. I feel like for the upcoming series with Ncuti Gatwa as the Doctor, I think we need a new theme title sequence thing, whatever. I don't want to see these epic, grandiose title sequences for every episode now. Mostly because I'm a big fan of giving each Doctor their individual, specially stylized, specific title sequence. I'm a big supporter of that, and I feel like those title sequences fit for the 60th anniversary special, for the David Tennant 14th Doctor, for the Ncuti Gatwa 15th Doctor, if we're still calling it that. Give him some new ones. And you know what? Might as well redo the logo while you're at it. Because again, I've been saying for a while, I love the logo. I love the return to classic Doctor Who with the logo. But I feel like that was fitting for the 60th. For the new upcoming series, just give me something new. You don't have to change, completely overhaul it entirely. Just, do something new and fun and exciting with it. I know it's fairly recent. We only just got this new logo. But, I feel like they can do something pretty refreshing with a new logo for Doctor Who. And here's a personal request for Rusty Davies or whoever is in charge of the visual effects team for the title sequence. If you could put an image of Ncuti Gatwa in those titles like you used to do in some of the older days, I'd be very much appreciated. So thank you in advance if you do. Now, let's move on to the episodes themselves. In the episodes themselves, let's start with the Star Beast. I love the Star Beast. This might actually be my favorite of the three. Now, of course, this is the third interpretation of this story. Obviously, it started with the original comic book run, the black and white comic book run from the Doctor Who magazine, which was then recolored for an American re-release of those same comics, and then adapted into a Big Finish episode featuring Tom Baker as the proper Doctor for that story, and now it's being adapted again for television with David Tennant as a completely different Doctor from the original story. So right off the bat, the fact that it's already based on an existing source material for Doctor Who, which is a rarity for Doctor Who, it has happened, just, not quite as often as you might imagine, but right off the bat, it gives you something to look forward to. You know what's coming, you know what to expect. I personally wasn't surprised by the twist with Beep the Me turning to be the bad guy, and from what I've seen online, everyone who saw it and didn't read the comic, about 90% of them predicted it anyway. So no, it's a thing. So I guess the twist itself wasn't that shocking to a lot of people, especially veterans in Doctor Who. But for someone like me who knew it was coming anyway, the exciting part was to see how are they going to handle it. And I felt like they did it perfectly. Now let's start off from the beginning. I feel like for a lot of us, the first questions that all of us had were like, okay, so how long will it be till this new 14th Doctor is going to run around before he meets up with Donna again? And how long are they going to keep Donna a secret? How long until Catherine Tate shows up on screen? Russell T Davies pretty much answers that right off the bat. Like within the first minute of the special, they run into each other again. And so, yeah, thanks for that. And so I guess this really just feels like Russell T wanted to address that off up top, so they can just smooth into the rest of the episode with no problem. And you know what? I love that. It's a very good way to start off the specials. Now, here's a bit of a negative I have is they then go on to introduce the character of Rose Noble Temple, right? Or Temple Noble, whatever. Played by, of course, by Yasmin Finney. Of course, I don't remember they made a big story out of it. That they cast the first ever trans companion for Doctor Who. I remember how they made a big story about her being Donna's daughter and all that. Fact of the matter is, she's barely in the specials, and it's a little bit disappointing. I wanted more from this character. I mean, I wanted her to be a proper, on-screen companion, and we kind of didn't get that. I mean, we get a lot of attention pointed towards her in this episode, and a little bit in the final special, which we'll talk about in a minute, but not a lot in between. So that's a bit of a negative for me. I definitely would have loved to have seen more from Yasmin Finney in these specials, but I'm happy with what we got, and we'll talk a little bit more in detail about it as we move on through the Star Beast episode. But yeah, it's nice to see Sean back. It's nice to see Sylvia Noble back. I love the jabs and references to previous versions of the Doctor. Is like about a few minutes ago, I was this really brilliant woman, and the psychic paper didn't have time to catch up with the fact that the Doctor is now a male again. I love subtle jabs like that, subtle jokes like that. They were funny. They landed for me. And of course, we then get to something that some might consider a bit controversial: the new sonic screwdriver. Now, for the most part, we didn't really get to see the screwdriver do anything too controversial yet. I mean, the Doctor just uses it to burn through a fence so he can enter a restricted area. Nothing more with that, right? And then the Doctor just uses it to produce a touchscreen out of thin air that he can manipulate at will. Okay. The sonic screwdriver can do that now. Apparently, that's going to solve a lot of problems for the Doctor with his new screwdriver, except it kind of feels it makes the screwdriver even more OP than it was. And I know that there have been a lot, and I mean a lot, of complaints by a lot of people that the sonic screwdriver, as it progresses, especially in the modern series, it becomes too overpowered. Like, there were even complaints about that during the classic series. Case in point, they got rid of the sonic screwdriver at one point. But I feel like they've already established with the modern series that even if the sonic screwdriver perishes, the Doctor can just whip up another one at the drop of a hat. So good luck on doing that again. But some of the best Doctor Who stories and some of the best Doctor Who plot points in the modern series were those where the Doctor loses his sonic screwdriver, or drops the sonic screwdriver. The screwdriver is destroyed, and now the Doctor has to figure out a way of getting out of tight situations without the sonic screwdriver, which he gets back by the end of the episode or the next episode anyway. So I'm wondering if the screwdriver is not going to become way too overpowered. I mean, we saw him basically use the screwdriver to produce force fields to prevent laser fire or blaster fire. So, like, is there anything that this new sonic screwdriver can't do? Can't wait to see what the new sonic screwdriver is capable of. But you know, it's a minor nitpick. I don't see it as big of a deal as some people might, and some people might definitely have a much bigger issue with it. I don't. I just, like I said, it's a minor nitpick. Love the design of the screwdriver, and it's not the screwdriver is even more practical going forward. And then, of course, we get the introduction of Shirley Ann Bigham, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right. I honestly don't know what people's problem is. You can't handle seeing a disabled person on screen. You feel like you got to attack her, attack the actress. Why? I mean, I'll admit, from the limited amount of screen time we get to see of her, she didn't impress me too much. It's great to have another prominent figure in a unit. It's great to have another prominent female character in unit. It's great that we actually have a prominent disabled character as a prominent member of unit. I don't understand. I don't understand why people have to be dicks about it. That's all I'm saying. But like I said, overall, I liked the character of Shirley Ann Bigham. Didn't love her. She's got a really cool wheelchair with the cool armaments and explosives, and yeah, good luck shoving that into a wheelchair. But again, if we got to see more screen time from her, maybe I would have liked it a bit more. Now, granted, I'm jumping a little bit ahead to the end of the specials just for a little bit, because at the end they introduced the idea that the TARDIS now has a ramp that she can enter with the wheelchair. I think that's definitely a sign that we're going to see Shirley Ann Bigham in the TARDIS traveling with the 15th Doctor going forward. So here's hoping we get to see more from this character, and here's hoping that Shudigawa's Doctor is gonna keep coming back to present day Earth more frequently and have more unit stories. I mean, you already know that we're going to see Mel again. We only know that we're going to see Kate Stewart again in the next series. So I think it's fairly possible that we're going to see a lot of unit stories based in contemporary Earth with the 15th Doctor, where Shirley Ann Bingham's character can develop a little bit more. So maybe I'll warm up to her even more. I just really hope it doesn't turn into another Osgood. And for those of you who don't know, I'm not the world's biggest fan of Osgood. That's a separate conversation for another day. I'm saving it for Doctor Who Revisited whenever I get to those episodes, eventually. So this is my very quick, brief breakdown of Shirley Ann Bigham. So I hope this kind of covers it for the next couple of episodes. Moving back into the central plot, it's nice to see how they've adapted the elements from the original comic into the modern era of Doctor Who, with with the existence of cell phones and the news cycle, which was very popular during the Russell T Davies era. Still no hint of Trinity Wells. We'll get to her in a minute, but I feel like they made a very accurate depiction of how this type of event, like the mysterious first contact, if you will, would happen in 2023. And I love that they're the comparisons and references to E.T. in more ways than one. This is kind of how the story of E.T. would look like if done in today's modern context. And you know what? It works for me. And E.T. is a really good movie, and I love it. So it works perfectly well that we get to see this play out the way that we do. Which, of course, it's a great introduction to Donna's house now, with all the dolls that, or rather the toys that Rose Temple Noble is producing, which, of course, nice references to all the other aliens from the Doctor Who pantheon, which, of course, comes into play later. So yeah, I liked the ET like scenes. And there's a lot of really fun comedy in the Noble Temple homestead with the Doctor, of course. The slapstick, the talking to the Meep. I feel like the Meep really did steal the show in most of the scenes that it was in. First of all, just the design of Beep the Meep. I mean, it's slightly different from the original comic book. You gotta change it and adapt it to a live action CGI setting, but overall, it's great. I mean, it's very, very expressive and emotive. You really do feel for this character, and you really do buy in to the characters relating to the Meep, primarily from the performances of the actors responding to this. I can only assume was a puppet that they had to work with on set. And Mary Margolis, national treasure. It's great to see her back in Doctor Who. Well, I should say Doctor Who proper this time around, because she was in Sarah Jane Adventures and I believe one Big Finish. So it's great to see her finally making her Doctor Who TV show debut. And I feel like she nailed the voice of the Meep. It's better than I could have imagined. It's better than I heard in my head when I read the comic or when I listened to the Big Finish adaptation. Now, having said that, the Roth Warriors. I've never been quite sure how to pronounce those. For the longest time I called them the Rarath Warriors. On the Big Finish they called them the Warath, but I guess on the show they're just calling them the Roth Warriors. It's not a big deal. It's nice to finally know how to properly pronounce these guys. They look amazing. They don't look quite 100% like they did in the comic, but then again, how the hell do you make that a reality and still try to make it look practical? Something that actors can not only just walk around in suits and operate, but also act alongside these things. You can't. You gotta make them the way that they did, and I feel like they were really well done. The effects were really great, and they looked great on screen. Now, this is kind of more or less where the storyline divulges from the comic book plot, where they have to escape through houses and through rooms, different rooms of different houses, just to get to Sean's taxi to drive away. I mean, as adaptations go, it's pretty fine. There's really not much to talk about that. I love the comedic scene of them walking through the house where the guy is sleeping while watching TV. That was pretty funny. And this is where we get to the reveal, I should say, of who's really the bad guy here. I love the fact that the Doctor picks up on that after noticing that there were no marks from the Roth Warriors' blasters, neither on the car and not on the people that were on the ground. Like, as soon as he checked their pulses and realized that something's off, that's when you know that these guys aren't really the bad guys. Now, of course, me having read the comic, I know exactly what was coming. But, the comic was a little bit different also, because in the comic they weren't quite as altruistic or peace-loving as as this episode portrays them as. So it's a nice change. I love that they made them straight-up peacekeepers rather than trying to take out the Meep by any means necessary. Spoilers for the comic, if you're planning on reading them, they plant a bomb in the Doctor's stomach, hoping that it'll take out the Meep with him. So yeah, that's a major difference from the comics into the TV show. So yeah, I appreciate that they made them much more peace-loving rather than their comic book counterparts. Now, moving on to the scene in the parking lot, I loved it. I loved the Doctor just pulling out the wig and conducting a trial like the Fourth Doctor did in the Stones of Blood, which, by the way, Stones of Blood, if you count each serial as its own unique thing, that was episode 100 of the show. This episode, The Star Beast, episode 300. Just wanted to point that out. Here's where I get to a bit of a nitpick. I would have appreciated a flashback of seeing how the Meeps became what they are. Now, this could be possibly because I'm coming into this with my comic book expectations, because the comic book does show flashbacks to the Meep homeworld of how they were peaceful and friendly once, and then the dark sun came and poisoned their minds and basically made them all space Nazis. And yeah, I feel like it would have helped a lot to convey that point to the audience. You don't necessarily need it. The performances and the dialogue do it for you, but it would have been nice to see that, I think. But then, of course, you get the switcheroo where Beep the Meep goes from this cute, cuddly thing to this evil, maniacal space Hitler. And the change was glorious. The effects on the face look amazing. And the memes that came as a result, chef's kiss. Then that's more or less where the TV show and the comic kind of sync up, with the big floating chair and the people working and worshiping the Meep. That's more or less where the comic book and the TV show match back up together, minus the companion, which in this case not Sharon Davis, but rather Rose Noble Temple being mind controlled and attacking the Doctor. Minus that part, it's pretty much accurate to the comic, which is nice. It's great. And of course, it gives that wonderful, awesome moment for Shirley Ann Bigham to whip up the crazy armaments that she has in her wheelchair, which curiously were not featured in the other specials she was in. But I guess you didn't really need them in those. You kind of needed them for this episode. So it's nice, it's fun, and now we get back into purely original for this special territory of the Dr. Donna again. And it was great to see Donna slowly starting to remember the Doctor. It was nice that it didn't happen immediately when she saw him for the first time at the beginning of the episode. It slowly started to happen over time before she actually joined the Doctor properly. And I love that you can kind of start to notice where this is going the moment she calls him Doctor again, and not Spaceman or Skinny Man or whatever it is she was calling him in the episode. That's when you know the moment is coming. The Dr. Donna must live again. And I love how they set it up. I love that the Doctor needs, well, two versions of himself to stop the Meep ship from taking off. And I love the glass screen of, like, the Doctor is on one side, he needs to be on the other side, he needs the Dr. Donna to be on the other side. The whole, why does it have to be this moment? It was great. I loved it. Gave me chills, gave me the vibes of the end of time when he had to sacrifice himself to save Wilf. It was great. It was a great callback to that moment. Very well earned, I would say. And then he just goes on and says random words to reactivate the Dr. Donna. I'm not sure how to feel about that. It's like, okay, so it's not if she remembers, it's if you say those specific exact words to break the mind block you put on her head. What? So, like, this whole time she was safe. You could have gone back and met her. You could have spent time with her family. You could have come back and visited Wilf. You could have come back and visited the Noble Temple family. You just have to be careful not to say those exact same words in that specific sequence. Right? So, this kind of makes the whole ending of Journey's End kind of pointless, because the Doctor could still go back and visit Donna. She wouldn't remember him, obviously. But he could still go back and check on Wilf anytime he wanted to in any of the other incarnations since the David Tennant one. You just have to be very careful not to break the coding that you put on her head. I don't know. I felt like that was weird and kind of unnecessary. And I guess maybe trying to capitalize on the popularity of the Winter Soldier. I know that Captain America Winter Soldier did not start this trope, but a lot of other people kind of picked up that ball and ran with it since. So, I don't know. I guess it was just another, it felt right in the moment type thing. But then again, you break the coding, the Dr. Donna is back again, and then she's able to press buttons and save the world. No problem, nothing's happening. So, again, give us this big thing to look forward to. If she remembers for 1 second, she will burn up. You already kind of broke that rule once in the end of time, and then you do it again. And then, of course, it leads into why the Dr. Donna is still around. She's not burning up because she has a daughter now. Kind of feel like making a fine point of her being non-binary. Yeah, that was a little too heavy-handed, I'll admit. But I like what they had there. I like what they were going with, of like, she doesn't have to carry the load on her own. She can share the burden now because she passed it on to her daughter. I loved that. It was a really good start to resolving that situation. And I love that eventually Rose ended up saving the day again. I guess a Rose by any other name can't save the day in Doctor Who. So yeah, but then after that, how they got rid of the Dr. Donna thing, I felt like that was a bit cheap. Of like, oh, we could get rid of it anytime we want because we're women. We can just let go. So like, you spent this whole build-up thing just to say, oh yeah, women are just better. Not saying I disagree. I'm just saying there's 1,000 other ways you could have made that point clear. Women are better. You didn't have to go that way. You know what I'm saying? Like, there's 1,000 other ways to make that point. Case in point, most of the prominent characters in units in the third special are women. That's one way of doing it. Just, just saying that Donna, and in this instance, Rose, her daughter, could have gotten rid of the meta crisis thing anytime they wanted to, just because they're women, it felt a bit hollow. It felt like it wasn't written right. I don't know what it is. It just felt cheap. It didn't feel like the Russell T Davies of old, if you catch my meaning. It didn't have the Russell T Davies brilliance, sheen to it. But you know what? It got rid of the Dr. Donna thing. It got rid of the meta crisis thing. Donna's safe now. She can live her life remembering the Doctor and not having to, worry about burning up. So I'm fine with it. I would have also been fine with if they just kept the meta crisis thing and it's still the same Donna. She's just got all the Doctor's intelligence, and the same thing goes for Rose. That could have worked. That could have definitely worked. They didn't have to, get rid of it just to make a point. But that aside, then you move on to going back to the TARDIS and the new TARDIS. The new TARDIS looks incredible, amazing. You can already tell that all the Disney money is going into the right places with Doctor Who, particularly with the design of the new TARDIS set. It's great that David Tennant has this set all to himself. He said several times that he was a little bit envious of Matt Smith's TARDIS because it was a full-on complete set, whereas his set on the original thing was kind of a half-completed thing, if you catch my meaning. So yeah, it's a great set for the Doctor to play around in, and they get to the next episode by having Donna spill coffee all over the console. Okay, so there's a lot of mishaps that happen with Donna involving coffee, apparently. And you know what? It's the most Donna thing ever, so I'm perfectly fine with it. I loved it. And it gets us to the next episode, Wild Blue Yonder. I didn't like it. I did not like this episode. I think I've said multiple times on other platforms how I am really not a fan of Midnight, which is another Russell T Davies episode that a lot of people just absolutely adore, and I don't for whatever reason. And it's not just me having a problem with bottle episodes. If you didn't know, one of my favorite episodes of all time is Heaven Sent, which I guess could be considered a bottle episode if you really stretch the definition, but I didn't like this one. It was boring. Not much happening there. Okay, so let's start off with the opening prologue thing. Isaac Newton, which I guess is part Indian now. Okay, now listen, you know me. I'm all for diversity. I'm all for showing people of color in Doctor Who, but I'm also a little bit of a stickler for historical accuracy. You don't have to 100% stick to historical facts, and there are plenty of examples of Doctor Who episodes who've been a little bit loosey goosey with historical accuracies, but such a prominent figure in history like Sir Isaac Newton being brown doesn't really make much sense to me. And I know it's such a small matter. He's barely on screen for less than 2 minutes. That kind of bothers me. I mean, there's plenty of prominent Indian characters and people of brown color skin you can focus on. Why do you have to brown wash Isaac Newton just to put a little diversity in the episode? I mean, the actor Nathaniel Curtis did a really good job as Isaac Newton. You could have saved him for a different character. I don't understand why they had to make him, dark skinned. But you know what? It's a minor nitpick, okay? It's probably not as big as the whole. They now changed the word gravity to mavity. Just because the TARDIS landed in the tree and he misheard them saying the word gravity. I also didn't like that joke either. I don't know what it is. It didn't work for me. And that's another thing that caught on like wildfire. And now the whole internet is now, for lack of a better word, renamed the word gravity to mavity. So I don't know how to feel about that. I'm hoping it's just a trend. It's gonna pass. I'm personally not a fan of this joke, and I'll leave it at that. And now it brings us to the rest of the episode, which not much is happening in. It's just, again, it's like Midnight. It's just the Doctor and Donna walking down a very long corridor with an annoyingly slow robot. And nothing is happening in the episode for several minutes. It's just the Doctor and Donna introspecting while switching some panels, staring into the edge of the universe, and overall doing nothing. And I guess this is kind of because while they were filming it, it was still technically done during COVID times, so they had to be very careful, just only having two actors in a closed, empty room with not much interactions with anyone else. I'm guessing that's the only reason this episode is what it is, or maybe they were just really saving some of the budget for the other two specials, rightfully so, if I might add. But yeah, not much there. I will say this: the visual effects of the environment looked amazing. Like, you can really tell I said it before and I'll say it again, you can really tell the Disney money is going to the right places with these specials. Because, like I said, I don't know if they filmed it in a proper soundstage or in the Disney, what's it called, the volume, where they film all the Disney Plus, Star Wars, and Marvel shows. I can only assume it was filmed on that type of environment. That's why it looked so good and so all encompassing and very immersive. Just kind of wish something more interesting was happening between those walls. That's all I'm saying. And on that note, the I've seen a lot of people complain about the visual effects of the doubles of Donna and the Doctor. You know what? That didn't bother me one bit because they're supposed to look wrong, right? They're supposed to look misshapen. So the visual effects, I feel like this is one of those cases in Doctor Who where the bad visual effects actually help sell the concept of the monster. So again, that didn't bother me. I actually liked it. I really liked it. I don't understand what people's problems with that monster is. I just feel like it wasn't as threatening as a lot of people thought it was. And I loved some of the uh, talking about Gallifrey and all the stuff that happened with the Doctor post the David Tennant first regeneration, with the flux and the timeless child and all that. I love that. Even in a subtle way, Russell T is addressing the idea of the timeless child, and I'm hoping we get that Russell T is going to explore this concept further, even though it's not really something that Russell T does all that much. Well, I'll rephrase. It's not something that Russell T Davies used to do. Like the reason I don't think we're going to see a lot from the timeless child going forward is because Russell T Davies is not the type of person to play with other people's toys. If you catch my meaning, he usually makes his own toys and plays with them, unlike a certain Stephen Moffat we all know. But since he brought back Beep the Meep and the Toy Maker, all bets are off as far as I'm concerned. So maybe we'll get more information on the Timeless Child with the upcoming Shurigawa series. But yeah, back to the episode Wild Blue Yonder. Not much there to say. A lot of just time wasted. A lot of, just desperately trying to fill 50 minutes just to have an episode, I guess. And you know what? It worked. Because you actually got a full episode out of it. It's definitely not one of those episodes I will be gladly coming back to and revisiting. I feel like the whole idea with the salt is kind of pointless. Even though it has consequences on the next episode, it does really feel very, very pointless. So I don't really get the why they had to shoehorn that into the episode. But whatever. The episode ends in the best way possible. We get to see Wilf back, Bernard Cribbins as Wilfred Mott. May he rest in peace, of course. I'm glad that we got to see him again. I'm glad that they had enough time to shoot that scene. It's a great setup for the next episode. My only nitpick with that is that it feels incredibly rushed, and I can only assume that it looks rushed because they thought they had more scenes with Bernard Cribbins for the next episode. So that's why they didn't spend too much time with him and to develop that scene. But more the Doctor seeing Wilf again and giving him the hug that you wanted to see in the episode was great, and I loved it. But the scene was really short and very rushed. And you know what? In an episode where they really tried their hardest to stretch the time just to fill a full episode, you could have taken a few minutes from the rest of the episode to focus more on Wilf if you already had him for as limited of time as you had. But it's the unfortunate reality that we live in, that Bernard Cribbins was taken away from us before he was able to finish filming for this episode. Moving on to the next episode, and speaking of Wilf, even though we have seen images from the set that they filmed that scene with Bernard Cribbins there on the wheelchair. We don't see him in the scene. They clearly use the body double. I guess the footage they were able to shoot when they shot those scenes, uh, they didn't feel was right enough. They didn't film enough, so they just had to. They were forced to cut him out of the scene entirely, which I fully understand, and I'm glad that if you don't have the good footage with Wilf in this in this scene, don't use it and just use the body double. And I think that's what they did, and they made the right choice doing that. However, I will say that this is kind of off camera stuff, behind the scenes thing, but the decision to post that Twitter post of saying farewell to Bernard Cribbins and the fact that this was the only scene that they were able to shoot with him, the timing was a bit off because that post went live almost immediately after the episode did. And I wish we could say that we live in a world where as soon as the episode drops, everyone immediately rushes to see it. That's not the world we live in right now, so a lot of people didn't get a chance to see it and probably saw it on Twitter and were spoiled the fact that this was the only scene that Wilf was going to be featured in. And I'm not saying that they shouldn't have posted it. I'm just saying that at least they could have waited 24 hours. Or you know what? Just wait until the next episode to let people know that that's the reason why we don't see Wilf in the next episode. Minor nitpick. It doesn't really affect the episodes themselves. It's just something that happened behind the scenes, or rather in the real world, as they say, that I feel like could have been handled better. But moving into the giggle, I really love this episode. I'm not ready to say that it's my favorite of the three, but it's a really, really good episode. I love the opening, the setting, the introduction of Neil Patrick Harris as the toy maker. I love it. And also the introduction of Mr. John Logie Baird. All of that was done brilliantly and perfectly. And so was the return of the Doctor and Donna. And again, I talked about the scene with Wilf already ad nauseum, so no reason to spend too much time on that. And I just love the subtle hints of having the toy maker in the background while the 14th Doctor, was trying to assess the situation. That was really good. And then, of course, I loved the introduction of reintroduction, I should say, of Unit. I love the idea of Unit Tower. The fact that they blew up the previous headquarters in Power of the Doctor, so they needed a bigger one. Seriously, how much budget does Unit have that they can just afford to blow up a building and build another one 3 times the size in the center of London? Doesn't really make much sense to me, but you know what? It's Unit. It's great that they now have an Avengers Tower equivalent. And I wish we get to see more of this headquarters now and don't just use it for one episode and then blow it up like what they did with the previous headquarters. So that's nice. Nice to see Shirley and Bigham again. And then there's Mel. Mel's never been one of my favorite companions, but I mean, anytime we get to see classic companions coming back, I'm all for it. Even if it's Adric. Yes, I said it. I'm probably going to regret that, but I said it. So yeah, I really jumped out of my seat when I saw Mel again. And I love that the Doctor just sees her and hugs her immediately. And she, of course, she recognizes him straight away because she hasn't seen the Doctor regenerate, but she knows about regeneration and she knows what comes with it. And I mean, we just recently saw Sylvester McCoy in Power of the Doctor talking to Ace, so it's nice that they're keeping the Seventh Doctor-ness in the public consciousness with Doctor Who. I love that they hug and then explanations come later, that they're saving it for a different scene. So that was really fun. I like that. And speaking of the explanation scene of how Mel got to Unit, because honestly, there isn't even much I wanted to talk about in between those two scenes. And also, once again, I love Donna's reaction to a previous companion. I mean, we already saw that she's perfectly fine with the Doctor having other companions besides her, like Martha and like Captain Jack and Sarah Jane that we saw in previous episodes. And I like that she doesn't feel intimidated by Mel, even though it was like, oh, so I'm not your first redhead then. That was a funny joke, and I'm really glad that she took it in stride and didn't, have the Rose Tyler reaction, which, that response in School Reunion gets worse every time I rewatch it from Rose perspective. But yeah, I liked the chemistry between Catherine Tate and Bonnie Langford in this special. And I can't wait to see more of Melanie in the next series because we know she's coming back with Shuri Gatwa. But moving on, how she got back, how she's now a part of UNIT. Obviously, we saw her in Power of the Doctor, where Kate Stewart said she was going to offer some of those people jobs at UNIT, which is great. Does that mean we get to see even more older companions coming back in UNIT? That's great. Give me more of that. But then we get to the explanation of how she came back, and it's like, I can't remember what she said. She used a Zingo, a thing you get used to get a ride on. I love that they open with talking about Sabalom Glitz. That Sabalom Glitz, lived to 104. I can't remember what the exact number she gave, but yeah, it's a nice way to bookend that part of her character from the Seventh Doctor era, and I love that it didn't really go with the direction of the Big Finish realm, where Sabalom Glitz basically just dumped her, or rather ditched her with debts, huge debts that she had to do some questionable things to pay off, and ended up working for Dodd Bolter of all people. So even though I like the Big Finish stories, I'm glad that they went in a different direction with Mel's character on the TV show side of things. And then of course she got a Zingo back to Earth. You want to explain how come she traveled 2 billion years into the past? Because remember, when the Doctor meets Sabalom Glitz for the first time in the Forbidden Planet, in the Mysterious Planet, that's 2 billion years in the future. And when he meets him again, presumably it's the same time period, because it's been addressed several times in that era of Doctor Who, that Ace was just thrown 2 billion years into the future into Ice World, where the Doctor met Sabalom Glitz again, and that's when Glitz and Mel took off in the Nosferatu 2. So that's 2 billion years from now. And suddenly she's back in present day Earth. How? Is a Zingo also a time machine? So can you use a Zingo to travel through time? Is that going to be a plot point that's going to come back in later episodes? Presumably ones featuring Mel? I'm curious. I want to see more. I want to learn more about this technology, and I don't need to see the entire detailed story of how she got back to Earth. Just, explain how she got from 2 billion years in the future to the present day. That's all I'm asking for now. And then, of course, the Doctor and Donna take off again, going back to Soho 1925, meeting the toy maker again. And I just love the usage of the old footage with William Hartnell and the original toy maker played by Michael Goth. It's great. I love it. I even love that they colorized it. It really does help bring this whole thing together. And I feel like if Russell T is going to continue on this path of bringing in classic villains like the Toy Maker, like Mavic Chen, like other characters, I feel like it's important to give the audience a heads up, especially ones that haven't seen the classic series, so they know who these people are. Like, you've been able to get away with it up until Now with bringing back classic villains from classics, the classic series, without too much explanations. Right now, I think the flashbacks help. It didn't take over the story too much. You do see the flashback for William Hartnell, the first Doctor, and the Toymaker. It's incredibly brief, and it's done in a really cool and interesting way. That's the way to do it, I think. Do more of that if you're going to bring if you're going to bring back old villains. I'm not saying they should have done that for Beep the Meep, because clearly they addressed that whole situation as the comic and the Big Finish thing didn't happen. This was the first and so far only time the Doctor met Beep the Meep. I like the flashback scene, and I love how quickly the Doctor realizes who he's facing, and then the fact that it's the Toymaker, and the Toymaker is pissed and out for blood. And again, just like Beep the Meep, where they kind of ignore the fact that the Doctor already met him in the past, they ignore all the other times the Doctor met the Toymaker in Big Finish and other places. But whatever, I guess, there really is only one canon, which is the show canon. Whatever. It doesn't matter. As long as the story's good, that's all we're really here for. And I feel like the story was good. So that's all there is to it. And then you sort of get into the territory of Wild Blue Yonder, of just the Doctor and Donna in a closed space, presumably, once again, the Disney volume thing where they film stuff. And it sort of has that bottle episode vibe to it, of just two actors walking around corridors. But I feel like in this instance, it was done great. Now, granted, there's a lot of wandering around empty rooms in a long corridor, which leads to nothing. But once you actually get into rooms where there's actual things in those rooms, that I think is where the episode really picks up again and really emphasizes the horror element for this show, which is one of the things that really made Doctor Who what it is. It's kind of the bread and butter of Doctor Who. The puppet guy was really scary, even more so the little tiny marionette mother and the babies. That was horrifying, and that was Doctor Who horror at its peak. That was brilliant. The effects of the Doctor marionette were kind of off, but again, just like with the visual effects in of the Doctor and Donna knockoffs in Wild Blue Yonder, it just makes the whole thing scarier. So I don't really have too much of a problem with that. But yeah, I just love Donna's response to being attacked by marionettes. Just grab the mother and smash her head against the wall. Brilliant, perfectly Donna, and yeah, it's great. I love it. And when the Toymaker shows up, it's glorious. I love the Spice Up Your Life song and dance performance. I love almost everything that the Toymaker did, of like turning people into plastic balls. I love the rose petals coming from the guns, and I love the spinning people around performance. One problem I have with that, one issue I take with that, is that he just literally takes Kate Stewart for a spin, and then she smashes her head against the wall. Now, call me primitive, call me old-fashioned, call me whatever you want, but like, that's a big no-no for me. Like, you can murder two people by turning them into plastic balls. I don't care. But taking a woman and smashing her head into a wall? No. That's no. That's a no. That's a big no for me. And I get it. He's the villain. He does bad things. So it is what it is. I'm just really against, violence against women. Especially Kate Stewart in this instance. But whatever. That's just me. I'm pretty sure a lot of people didn't have that same sentiment that I just showed. But having said that, the performance is over. It's great, and I love the Toymaker and the Doctor just having a standoff on the helipad. I love the joke of like, Where are my men? There were people guarding this ray gun. Where are they now? Oh, I think they're still falling. Splat. I like that. That was really really cool. That was very well done. Perfect comedic timing on Neil Patrick Harris's part. And then, hmm, how should I say this? The bi generation scene. Now, I'm not an idiot. Well, I'm not that big an idiot. I knew Shooty Godwell was going to show up eventually in this episode. I wasn't quite sure of how that was going to be handled, but I think we all knew that was going to happen. And as soon as he fired the ray gun at the Doctor, you kind of knew it was coming anyway. He was going to regenerate. He was going to become the new Doctor, and he's going to take on the toy maker with the new Doctor, which would have opened up a whole can of worms of problems of how will the Doctor now face off against the toy maker in a post-regeneration state. And I loved that Mel and Donna were literally side by side with the Doctor. The classic companion and the modern companion holding the Doctor's hands as he regenerated into the next one. And I love the references to previous Doctors being mentioned in the final speech. And then the Doctor just doesn't regenerate, and you have to pull the Doctor apart to get two Doctors again. Okay, as if we haven't used the trope of multiple Doctors often enough, especially by Russell T Davies. I don't get it. Why do we need... Why? I mean, the concept of regeneration has already been changed forever with the Timeless Child, and the Doctor regenerating back into an older face. So you've already changed up the regeneration lore enough, so adding something new to it isn't going to change that much. I'm just curious as to why we needed another David Tennant Doctor at the end. And I've said this a billion times already. David Tennant is my favorite Doctor of all time. I just kind of feel like the whole bi-generation thing was another cheap trick of just keeping David Tennant around so they can reuse him for future episodes every once in a while, which I have no problem with seeing David Tennant again. I just feel like it's kind of a cheap way of keeping him around. Like, David Tennant doesn't really get the chance to move on. Like other Doctors, they play the Doctor straight for as many seasons as they get a chance to regenerate and move on, and maybe come back for special appearances here and there. But it kind of feels like, and I'm being very careful with my words here, it kind of feels like they're trying to make the Doctor be more about David Tennant than it is about other actors coming into the role and regenerating. The character is bigger than the actor. The character, Doctor Who's been around longer than David Tennant has. Keep that in mind, okay? While I'm happy to see David Tennant in anything, I'm just worried that if we keep going back into the David Tennant well whenever they want to boost to the viewership, I just feel like it's going to get a bit stale every once in a while. It's like, I'm fine with bringing back previous Doctors. I jumped out of my skin when they brought back the older Doctors in Power of the Doctor. But I feel like they're kind of trying to make the David Tennantness of it all outshine the Doctor. A character known for being played by multiple actors. It's like if they kept bringing back Sean Connery to play James Bond every time the new Bond wasn't working as well. So that's my statement on that. I love the game that the two doctors were playing with the toy maker, and I love that this was how he eventually lost, and the effects of him being folded into a Jack in the Box thing was handled. I like that, and I love that they're setting up for things in the future. Of course, Beep the Meep saying that he's answering to a higher power. There's a boss coming, and now even the toy maker is dropping hints that there's something even bigger than him coming, which I can only assume is the Jinx Monsoon character, which we've already seen images from. I'm guessing that's what this was all leading up to. But yeah, I'm glad that the toy maker is defeated. I'd be disappointed if this was the last we'll ever see of the toy maker. I would love to see the toy maker come back again, especially if he's played by Neil Patrick Harris. But you know what? Any actor of that caliber could work. Any actor will do. Just I don't want to make this a final thing for the the toy maker. And the final scenes of, so if we got two doctors now, we can have two TARDISes, and I love that they explain it away by just having, we're still in a state of play where the rules of reality are bent as a result of having the toy maker there. So that's why that's why we can have two TARDISes for two doctors. I like that. I like how they explain that away. But then the scene in the TARDIS with the two doctors trying to figure out why the doctor reverted back to the old face. I didn't like it. I didn't like it at all. It was a very poor explanation at best. I felt like, okay, so when Jodie Whittaker suddenly regenerated into David Tennant again, you knew something big was coming, right? You knew there had to be a big major reason why that happened. I mean, this never happened before. So why did it happen? And kind of like how they got rid of the meta crisis thing, the explanation they gave us was lazy and half baked, in my opinion. I disagree with the reasoning that they brought up, both the Shurigawa doctor and Donna in this scene of the doctor never stops running. Since when has that been a problem? And I don't know if you watched any of the seasons past when you left, Russell, but the doctor did settle down and try to live his life and stop running several times, as a matter of fact. With Matt Smith after the pawns died, and then again on Transalore, and then Capaldi did it when he was guarding Missy's vault for a few years, and then kind of with Jodie Whittaker coming back on again, off again, visiting her friends in the Jodie Whittaker, and of course, spending some time in space prison. So yeah, the doctor did give settling down and stop running a shot multiple times, and that's not even counting instances from other media like Big Finish, Stranded, and other stuff. So, like I said, the reasoning is bad. Why the doctor reverted back to his old face? Because he needed some time to spend time with his friends, and the only friend he could spend time with was Donna. Right? Not, Joe Grant, not Ian and Barbara, not even Perry Uh, Not even hell, Ace or Tegan, which we just recently saw. Not any of the other friends he has. I mean, hell, Mickey and Martha are still around in this universe. And so is Captain Jack. Like, the only friend you could turn to spend time with was Donna? Where'd you pull that from? And on that note, you want to explain why you also changed your clothes as well when you regenerated? Now, of course, the answer is obvious. David Tennant, significantly taller than Jodie Whittaker, so he really wouldn't have fit in her clothes. But again, this was the first time this ever happened, and even the Doctor himself was shocked by how his clothes changed mid regeneration. So, yeah, the explanation was very flimsy and unsatisfying. And you know what else? I don't think it's done yet. I don't think that's the last we're ever going to hear from this. I think there's going to be more to it than that in Ncuti Gatwa's upcoming series. Because, Russell T Davies is a writer who spares no expense when it comes to writing these things. So I just think it's all setting up for something big and major. And if it doesn't, then it was kind of a wasted effort, in my opinion. But I think that about wraps it up. I love the ending scene of the Doctor with the Noble Temple family hanging out. I love how they address the fact that Wilf is still around, just, off screen. That's perfect. That's great. I love that. And I love that Ncuti Gatwa has his own TARDIS now. Desperately needs a change of clothes, I would argue. And I love that he's got a jukebox. Hopefully, this is the start of adding some more new stuff to Ncuti Gatwa's TARDIS to make it a little different from the 14th Doctor's TARDIS. He even mentions that he's planning some new renovations in this TARDIS. So maybe it's gonna be like a Smith to Capaldi thing, where the Smith TARDIS from the 50th anniversary special is the basic shape of what Capaldi's TARDIS eventually ended up being. But when Capaldi took over, he just added a lot of stuff. He populated the TARDIS. He added bookshelves and an office space type thing. So maybe that's what Ncuti Gatwa was going to do to this TARDIS, which, quite frankly, feels a bit empty. So hopefully there's that. And again, hopefully we get to see more of Shirley Ann Bingham with, the TARDIS now being more accessible for disabled people, especially with a wheelchair ramp. And, if you actually look at the design of the TARDIS, it really looks like it was built for someone with a wheelchair. I mean, case in point, it looks like Cerebro. Am I the only one who looked at that TARDIS and thought it looked like Cerebro? Because it does. So maybe that's a hint to that, but who knows? I'm just glad that Doctor Who is back on track again. And hell, I'm just happy we get to see Doctor Who again after over a year of nothing. Minus, Big Finish and comics and whatever. But yeah, I'm just glad we got to see more Doctor Who, and we've got more Doctor Who coming. And you know what else? We don't even have to wait that long because it's only a few weeks till Christmas. So we get to see Ncuti Gatwa again. And I'm excited. Overall, I loved the 60th anniversary specials. Again, I think my favorite is still the Star Beast, then the Giggle, and then just, I'm sorry to say this, but I was not a fan of Wild Blue Yonder. It is what it is. It's just going to be one of those things. I'm never ashamed to admit that there are episodes that from Doctor Who that a lot of people love, and I don't. And I'm equally not ashamed to admit that there's a lot of people that there's a lot of episodes from Doctor Who that people just hate that I love. That's just me as a fan. It's all subjective, and we're all allowed to have our opinions. Just be kind to people in the comments when you address them. That's all I'm here to say. Can't wait to see Shuri Gawa again as the 15th Doctor, and hopefully I can edit and put this review out on my channel before the next episode. So wish me luck on that. But either way, until that happens, all there really is left to say now is Alonzi. Hi there. Thank you for watching the video. And if you enjoyed it, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and tell your friends. I'll see you next time.